Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. This week, we have managed to get Ben Herring on, who's tearing up the podcast world at the minute with these coaching culture podcast. I can't believe the list of guests he's got, and how I've managed to get him on here, we do not know, but we'll find out. Ben, for those that aren't aware of who you are and what you're doing, can we share a bit of your past and how the hell you've managed to get all these guests on? Because you've done something special there, mate. To be fair,
well, what a pleasure to be on, mate. It's always lovely to chat to people about rugby and this sort of stuff. So it's really nice, mate, Carl. My background, mate, is I played professional rugby for a number of years, and then I became essentially a coaching nomad and just floated around various teams over the world, international teams, professional teams, company teams in Japan, international teams with Canada and Japan, Toyota, Otago, Highlanders, Sunwolves. And I've just been on this jaunt, mate, where My wife said to me from a very early start in rugby coaching, she said, until our youngest kid is at primary school, mate, fill your boots. And she was happy to travel. And so I've been privileged enough to be able to tour the world, mate, getting these amazing coaching opportunities and embracing them every couple of years, make a big point to change and grow and learn. And it's been wonderful, mate. And the podcast is just an extension of that now, and just keeping all the people I coach with along the way.
Amazing. So you've been able to sort of travel with the family, take the family with you while you're on the journeys, or have you sort of been able to let them grow up and you come back ready when you need to?
We've got 4 kids born on all different continents, and we've taken them everywhere we've been, mate. So it's that's been the joy. 2 of the middle ones speak pretty good Japanese. That my daughter, who's 11, is pretty fluent. We just made a point wherever we went, we would throw the kids into whatever local schooling we would do, and so that's been amazing in terms of what an experience the kids have had whilst I've had all these awesome coaching and rugby journeys. They've been not all super happy. You know, something that's quite tough going when you get thrown into as the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid in the whole school, speaking a language you don't know. But they've come through the other side outstanding and pretty resilient to change. So it's been a great experience. My
boys have done the same. Moving to Spain, they kind of went straight into Spanish school, and it was a sink or swim situation for them, and they're coming out the other side. They learn Valenciano as well, which is the regional dialect, as well as mainland Spanish. So
awesome.
Yeah,
that's great, isn't it?
Kids are a lot more
trait
resilient
for the kids, right? Like they'll thank you for it.
100%. Yeah, you'd hope so. I don't think they realise it at the time how lucky they are, but it's one of them. Yeah. So obviously, how did your rugby journey start? Because you've obviously played a little way around the world. You've now coached. Where did it all start at grassroots? Where was your first club? How did you fall in love with the game?
Look, I went to a big traditional rugby school in New Zealand called Auckland Grammar School, which is a big public school. But I never made any top teams. I was always in the B's or C's all the way through. Always too little. I think I made the second 15, which is the highest team I ever made at school. And then, mate, I think that I always reflect on that time period. Has actually taught me a lot about myself when you play for those teams which don't do any well, that they've just got the teachers there that just have to be there. The school makes you coach a team in the winter. And when you're getting down to the C teams, you've generally got the teachers who are happy to have the early starts just to get it done. But they were wonderful coaches in terms of they never killed my love for the game. In fact, they always they didn't coach me any rugby, but they certainly keep the fire alive. Mate, I left when I left school. I went over to Ireland for a year, just with some mates over there, and we pretty much drank every day for it felt like a year. I was working in a bar called the Old Stand in Mullingar in Ireland, and every time I finished at 5 o'clock, the whole rugby team that I was playing for, Mullingar RFC, would be in the bar at 5, and I'd have pints lined up. And hell of a time, great times, but ended up getting scurvy, would you believe, Carl? So
probably because no vitamin C in Guinness most of the time, is it?
Chicken burgers, and that was about the lettuce in those was the only green or colour we got in a whole year. So Mum was getting worried about me, so she enrolled me at Otago Uni, and she rang me up. It had already started, and she said, "Look, your grades were good enough. You got into PE school. I think it's probably wise you come back." And I had no intention of coming back particularly, so I just was sick of my scurvy hands. So I was like, yeah, Mum, you're probably right on this one. I'll probably take your advice here. And I went back, played in Otago, and I played for a club called Lamb Reunion, which fantastic club, right in Studentville. Amazing people, some old legends like Gary Wheeler. And it was just grassroots rugby. I went to that club because it was close. I could walk to it, and it was a great student-friendly club, meaning the old boys made sure there was lots of jugs on the tables in those days after games, and made it super fun to be part of. And the managers and the old heads at the club were just super supportive of me. By that stage, I got a little bit bigger. I was probably 80 kilos then, playing at Premier grade, and just had a couple of really good seasons there, mate. And a place down Southland came looking, which is the provincial union down there, and they said, why don't you come down here to the even colder part of New Zealand and have your crack at NPC when I was about 21 years old. So I did that and just flew on from there, had a couple of good games, a couple of good seasons, and then got picked up by the Highlanders and the Hurricanes and bashed myself about enough that my knee blew out. So I had to go somewhere a bit slower. So I got picked up by Leicester Tigers in the UK, and then ended up knocking myself out too many times and had to call it quits. And that was the end of my playing career. It was good fun. I didn't think I'd make it to 30, and I didn't. I always knew when I started it professionally at 21, I was like, gee, if I ever make it to 30, oh man, someone's smiling at me. So I made it to 29, which is as close as I could have got, I reckon.
That was probably fairly common in the Leicester Tigers team, just getting knocked out. That was probably just training most of the time, wasn't it, with some of the players back then.
There was this huge sign in the gym which said, in massive letters, we run through them, not round them. And that was and for a little number 7 who couldn't run over anybody, that was the most, I was like, oh, gee, right, I know how this is going to go in a couple of years' time.
Yeah. That was, I can imagine that was a good fun, though, because obviously that was probably during Heineken Cup success around that sort of period. A couple of Premier League titles around then as well.
Yeah, that was probably right at the end of sort of the glory days. I just got the back end of that where we were winning pretty much everything. The seasons were enormous because we were in every single final. Great bunch of lads. Absolute legends still at the club. Guys like Ben Kay, Martin Corrie, George Shooter, Julian White. Just the guys that were, the legends of Leicester were still there, influencing the culture in a fantastic way. And all the new guys like myself, you just bought into it straight away because these guys were just so awesome that you just joined the Leicester way, which is very tough, mate. Like I'd never experienced anything like it. I'd used to sort of fast running rugby and things like that, and this was not that, but it was something equally impressive the other way. It was tough. It was muscular. It was brutal. But gee, we played good rugby.
Yeah, I had Simon Middleton on previously on a previous pod a couple of weeks ago, and he said obviously he trained with a lot of the lads through that period as well, and knew obviously he'd come across from the rugby league stuff, and it was just very uncompromising was probably that easiest word to use for the whole of rugby at that time, because there was no backward step. You just got taught. You, as you said, if the letters are there, you've got to run through them. You got if you went to training the next day, you had no choice because you get called up on it, wouldn't you? And that's just life in rugby. But now it's done slightly differently. You're more worried about trying to avoid a tackle now rather than running straight into it.
Mate, you couldn't avoid it back then. You were you had to tape up. Yeah, we actually I had to drug up more for trainings than games, like just to get through them sometimes.
Really?
Mondays and Tuesdays were. I think Leicester had some crazy stat like they had 25% more training injuries than the next team, but it did toughen you up for sure.
So was it literally just some days there'd just be a scrap breakout, or just everyone was just full on, just 150% in training, and then whatever 100% of the game would be easy compared to what training is? Is it one of those old school analogies?
It was very old school like that. There was fights every training for sure, and there was this real mentality of that Tuesday. There's a 2-hour line-out session on a Tuesday, which was mauling and just close quarter stuff, and the team would be announced, and the second team was riled up to like take your guy out because then you're in, and that was encouraged. So you had to be on if you were starting because you know that the opposite was coming for your knees or will fill you in. So yeah, it was one of those environments. But then as soon as it stopped, it was brilliant. Like it was all just what was done. Like no one held any grudges or anything like that. It was just you'd see fights break out, full fist fights, and then no one would get in there. It would finish, and then the two fellas would just sort of shrug and righto, next line out, and they'd go to it. It's cool. In that regard, it was what everything rugby should be.
Yeah, but when you first landed and probably first saw that, you probably thought, "What the fuck have I signed up to?" Is that kind of the first mentality, or you were like, "Right, this is me.
I'll tell you one story. I've told. I mentioned this one a lot. One of my first trainings, we did this close quarter drill in the 5 meter channel, and it was one pack versus the other pack, and two guys get called out, and Richard Cockerell throws one of you the ball. And you're supposed to go straight into them, and then 3 seconds later, each pack joins and just becomes like a maul until you score about 2 meters away. And my first one is I stepped him. I stepped Lewis Deacon, who is a great player, and scored really quickly. And I was quite happy with myself. And Cocker said, "Mate, we don't do that here. We don't step." and I stupidly said, "Mate, there's no way I'd run straight at Lewis Deacon." And he said, "Do you want to F&B here?" And I knew what that meant. So he goes, "Let's go again." And so I just had to take it, run straight in and get hammered for the 3 seconds until the rest of the forward pack arrived. And I always thought that was my welcome to less. I was like, righto, I see how this is rolling.
I got that vibe. I met Richard Cockerell at the Spain-Georgia game when I was there, and it was literally the first half was just Georgia just having scraps with Spain. There was 2 mass brawls, 4 red cards or something. It was 2 red cards and however many yellows already in this first half. And Cockers walked across to go to the tunnel. I said, "I bet this reminds you of the old Leicester days." He goes, "I don't know why they just don't just let them fight it out, mate. Just let it on. Just we'll deal with it afterwards." I was like, "Yeah, brilliant. Can I get 5 minutes with you afterwards?" And he was just like, it was just riled up. Everyone was up for it. He just loved it. He was like, "This is proper old school rugby. This is great day out. This is." So
it's a lovely approach, and Cockers certainly epitomises that himself. So he was always as for it, and because he's so passionate about it, you just bought into it yourself too, and everyone that came there did that. It would be very hard to get in place these days.
Yeah, they're slightly frowned upon it now, don't they? So, obviously, Japan. You've mentioned Japan. You seem to have spent a little while in Japan. What was the main incentive? Obviously, I know there was a lot of money thrown around for Japan. Was that the golden ticket? And you thought, right, here we go. This is the payday,
or if you pay are blown out on the pokies and things. So I needed to catch up on a couple. No, mate. It's actually quite a defining story for me as a coach. Because I did 2 years at Leicester as a coach. So when I retired, knocked out, Cockers said, "Do you want to stay on as a coach?" And I didn't know, mate. I'd never thought about it before. And I gave it a good month. And then my wife said, "Look, obviously you see something and you might as well give it a crack." And I did. And I loved it straight away. And so much so that I worked 8 till 4 at Leicester. And then in the evenings I worked at Nottingham, second division. I just went around the clock and doubled up. So I did 2 teams with Glenn Delaney there at Nottingham. Loved it. He's a great coach. That's a great team. So I was getting my fix. And after a couple of years, I just realised if I stayed on, I was just going to be regurgitating the Leicester way, which is a great way. But I just wanted to learn sort of a bit more the art of coaching, a bit more like how to deal with people, be in different situations, just push myself outside my comfort zone. So I wasn't just regurgitating a system. I was actually learning the art of this thing because I was into it. I was really invested. And so I rang my agent and said, before I sign again on either Nottingham or Leicester, like, mate, what else is there? Like, I really want to push myself. Where in the world can I throw myself into something super different at whatever level? And he came back a few days later and goes, "Mate, there's actually a role at a mid-level company team in Japan. And I've thrown your name in there and they'd love to meet you. Would that be of interest?" And I said to my wife, I was like, "Do you want to go to Japan?" And she goes, "Oh, that'd be awesome. What a cultural experience." We just had 1 kid at the time. And so that was the one, like, and so I flew over for an interview on a weekend there and out, like must have nailed the interview because they said, "Yep, that's all good." And we took it, and we went there purely for the reason of let's sink or swim, like we're doing with the kids. Like, I didn't speak a word of Japanese, didn't know anything about the culture, and just went over there and just got into it, man. And it's so different, and fell in love with the place because the rugby's actually pretty good. But what you learn as a coach when you're having to coach in a foreign language that you can't speak, and a culture which is so different to Western culture, it's good for the soul. It's good for you as a person, and it's unbelievable as a coach. And the money's also quite good too, mate. You're not wrong. Like, I won't lie.
The money helps, I'm sure.
It's not a downer when you're looking at the numbers and the zeros.
Brilliant. So obviously when you turned up there, and as you said, it's a completely different culture, etc. Was the rugby culture different, or was that sort of, have they picked up little bits of how England, New Zealand, stuff like that did rugby and just sort of try to mash it together, or was it a completely different reset button again? So you've gone there, new culture, new language, and a new way of rugby, or did you go there and sort of bring the Leicester way, or how did that sort of turn up as a coach as well? How did that work?
Well, this is where I really grew as a coach. That first year, and probably the first 6 months were the most growth filled, because I came in from a very successful Leicester team, which won everything, coaching for a couple of years. And I really did. I was like, this is how you coach. This is the way, the only way. Yeah. I came in and went, right, I'll cut and paste, even though I said that's not what I didn't want to do. That's exactly what I did. I cut and paste with no insight to how Japanese people are and how they've been schooled and how all their cultures are. So I came in, guns blazing, this is what we're going to do. And I really tried to be, as you do when you start up, you're a bit sort of, think you're the man, and this is the best way, trust me, I know everything. And after a few months, the captain came to me and was like, mate, this isn't working. He actually spoke a bit of English, and he's a good dude, hard shot. And I said, mate, this works. And he goes, mate, it might work over there, but it doesn't work here. You got no idea about why we're even playing rugby. You got no idea of our upbringing and our education. Like, you just don't know. Like, that stuff is all very well and fine in England for that team. It doesn't work here.
Yeah.
And what he was mainly referring to was just around, particularly the way Japanese people are schooled. It's very different to the West. And one of the big ones we found out with our kids going through Japanese schooling, it's very much a lot of rope learning, a lot of fear of failure, so a lot of punishments if you're wrong. And so a lot of players particularly don't want to make mistakes. And so when you're trying to teach in potentially New Zealand, Australia, and even English way around back yourself, make good decisions, eyes up rugby, all that kind of thing, that doesn't compute as well, because if you're playing eyes up rugby, there's potential for making mistakes or doing the wrong thing. And throughout a Japanese education, that's often frowned upon and like grilled, like don't make mistakes. Don't make mistakes. Like, it's a lot of rope learning around things like maths and that sort of things. And certainly my children came out with a lot of that fear around certain things. And part of the reason we left Japan in the end was just because we wanted them to be a little bit more free to make mistakes and give things a crack and not be worried about, is this the right thing to do? So that was the big one. And so what that changes is a whole lot of your coaching style, knowing that people learn really differently. And like, you had to be really good. I was saying things like, mate, just in this situation, just whatever you see, just play whatever you see, which is fine if that's a comfortable statement for you. But if that's something which is never done, like, it gets this resistance, like, we don't like that. We haven't got confidence now because you're telling us just do anything and we don't want to get it wrong. Just tell us what you want us to do and we'll do it to the.
Yeah.
And so it had to be a little bit more, take away a few decisions and things like that, and things you don't like doing as coaches, but you had to do it and then slowly pull back on it and ease it out of the coaching. Like build towards it rather than come in hard and say, no, you've got to play eyes up rugby, because it fell flat. And I've seen many foreign coaches, particularly New Zealand ones, come into Japan trying to teach things like heads up rugby and all that without putting in hard sort of boundaries and ways to play that fail miserably and get frustrated, and the teams don't connect because they don't have confidence.
Do you think that's potentially a reason why there's a few more New Zealanders and foreign players going across when new coaches go there, to sort of add that bit of flair that the potentially the Japanese players don't know how to, or they're allowed to do they know how to do the flare, but it has to be built in a structure? Like, do you think that's a difference on the recruitment?
I think just the money in Japan is certainly enticing all the foreign people there, and some of the restrictions on foreign players being allowed in there is brought that influx. But I think Japanese rugby in general is really growing. Like the younger generation that's coming through now is very different to times gone past. We're talking about 15, 16 years ago, and the type of player that's coming through, like globally, but even more so in Japan. The Japanese players are a lot different to previous generations. They're a lot more open, a lot more decision-based, a lot more, or a lot less old-school Japanese styles, just because, society's changing there and these things are more acceptable than they once were.
So when you obviously got the player come up and spoke to you about that, and as you said, it was sort of 6 months into your first stint as a coach, was it a light bulb moment, or did you sort of think, hold on, did you have to go back to the drawing board yourself, or did you have to try and paddle in between both of your ego not taking a bit of a battering and also accommodating them? How did that work? Because that must, as your first proper gig outside of Leicester, that must have been a big sort of change to the system yourself as well.
I think that's a great shout. I think as a general rule, the quicker you can get over your ego as a coach, the better you become as a coach. I think when you start coaching, your ego takes over straight away because you're suddenly in a position where you're in charge, and then all of a sudden you got people doubting you and questioning you and all that stuff, and having these conversations about why. And then because you're not experienced and no, not you're not used to that sort of thing, you sort of get quite defensive and you kick back against it. But for me, having that experience so early on, my third year into professional coaching, I actually embraced it and went, actually, this is really good for me.
Good.
And I think I've always, and I often come back to like the fact that I was never picked for any teams all the way through my younger careers. It sort of conditioned me to take in, those sort of ego hits. Like I like to think I haven't got everyone's got an ego, but I like to think mine's not as big as it could be. So I think I took it pretty well, and I got a beautiful wife who's very good on just putting things in perspective, like saying things like, he's probably got a point, right? And you're like, yeah, he does, And she goes, yeah. Do you know why they're here? Have you been into the company and seen what they do during the day? And I hadn't, and so that was part of my mission. From there, I actually went into the office and just walk around for days. Like every day off I had, I kind of went to a different department, saw what the boys actually do, or the players do, and my goodness, once you saw what they did during the day, you're like, oh, a whole different perspective. Like it was, they were getting paid, but they still had to work, and some of the jobs they were doing, you're like, man, oh man, like paper shredder. The one guy's job was shredding paper, and he did that all day.
Really?
And so he was only playing rugby to get him out of the office. Yeah, wow. So it was totally different reasons. And so when you're coming from, an international environment where everyone's trying to, win top trophies and all that stuff, some people were just trying to get out of the office for a couple of hours a day, get away from the paper shredding. Sort of changes your perspective on things and softens the way you are as a coach when you know the backstories and things like that.
Yeah, nice. So obviously that was sounds like a fairly critical point in your sort of coaching career, and a lot of coaches potentially don't get that so early on as well. Do you think that benefited you, as you said, because it was so early, that you weren't sort of stuck in your ways a little bit, and you were still able to adapt to exactly what you remembered where you were as a player, potentially from not being picked, etc., and then to sort of embrace that straight away because you're not long retired? Because do you think that was easier because you were younger as well, as a younger coach?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a little bit my personality type is I enjoy change and I enjoy shifting myself first, and just like I'm never too proud to say I got it wrong, or like that's an easy say for me. I've always been pretty quick to go, oh, my bad. Yeah, I'm not. It doesn't bother me saying that, and I like the challenge of doesn't matter if you get it wrong. Like I'm just going to work on it, and certainly coaching is full of that, especially at the beginning when you're making heaps of mistakes around people just because you don't know how to deal with people when you're first learning about that sort of leadership stuff. But mate, it's all a learning process, and I think you're right. Like doing it young is a good thing. And I remember I talked to Matty O'Connor when I was first looking at the Japanese role, who's a very good coach, who coached at Leicester at the time. He was the assistant backs coach. And he did that stint when he was young, and he encouraged me for exactly that reason to take it. He said, "You'll never get a better coaching experience when you're young than Japan, because it tests you on every level. Like, you're not just coaching rugby, but you got to be thinking how to simplify, how to communicate without talking, how to present to people that can't understand you, how to get messages across, using sign language, how all this stuff like this, how to connect with people, socially when all this stuff." And it was amazing for your brain synapses to fire like that, to just get you thinking like that. It was cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, you've mentioned your wife quite a few times as well during the conversation, and I think it's critical to probably go over that with certainly younger coaches and stuff. How important is it to have a supportive partner that makes every decision you make easier? Because like my wife is really supportive of everything that we do to make sure that where we are as a family works, but also gives you the yin to the yang, because I'm 100 miles an hour. Like I'll be full in like 100, and she'll be like, "Hold on, let's think about this. Is that the right decision?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine, let's go." But how important is it to have a supportive partner while you try to do everything like that, go traveling the world, do all those situations as a coach?
Man, I just think it's been my biggest joy, actually, just sharing these experiences with my wife, and I'm very privileged, and she's super open to travel and super open to new experiences. We both are. We're very similar like that. So Japan's not an easy place to be by yourself as the partner. Sometimes when I'm coaching full time and you're at home, not with any sort of connection to family, friends, nothing, and you don't know the language. But she's a very intelligent woman, so she's learned it pretty quick, and she threw herself out there and met a lot of people quite quickly, and that's what you have to do. So lucky to have someone like that.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody. I know a good number of coaches over there's partners don't go because they struggle with that side of things, and that's a tough decision, and that's why a lot of professional coaches end up going solo and just doing the season, then coming back to wherever they are, because the partner's not happy. And if the partner's not happy in a place, particularly like Japan, it makes the decision to go in the first place a difficult one. But I never had that. I think from a life perspective, Carl, that having a sounding board at home on not just the rugby stuff, but the people side of the sport as well, has always been something. She's been an absolute rock for me. When, as a coach, you deal with all the stresses and strains and all the stuff, and sometimes you get in that emotional swirl, and to have someone at home that can just be, like you talked about, that sort of offset, that yin to that yang, to just go, actually, well, do you think he had a point by saying that? Do you think his argument when he was challenging you, was based in his perception, which is reality? And you're like, yeah, you're probably right. And just offer those sort of things regularly, and like it was lovely to have someone that you can lean on like that, like in your home, that would speak honestly, and not many people can speak as honestly as you would know to your partner, and it grew our relationship, to be fair. Like having those honest conversations where she could just tell me, "You're being a dick here. That guy didn't deserve the way you treated him. You should probably go sort that out tomorrow." You're like, yeah. If she's saying that, then I got to go do it. And so yes, mate, if you, and the other thing, if you haven't got a partner of any description, if you're just rolling single, solo, you don't have someone to vent to. Sometimes just being able to tell someone that it's not going to go any further, it doesn't mean anything. You go, this is my frustrations I'm having at work. These are these issues with these players, and to have someone that's just able to just go, oh well, and then you feel better, and then you go the next day without all those that baggage. And I think it's a special sort of dynamic, and I think I would imagine all the best coaches in the world have an incredible partner at home, or partner with them, not just at home, but a partner alongside them that offers them that yin and yang, that composure, that balance, that perspective on rugby and life and sport, I'd say.
I think it's even harder when you throw the kids into the mix as well, doesn't it? Because your wife, etc., is usually at home dealing with that a lot of the time, or you're trying to balance family life, and then, as you say, you'll vent certain situations and that you've got really wound up about, and she'll be like, "Hold on, like there's a bigger picture to all of this," and she'll be like, Yeah, and then you think, yeah, actually, I probably need to just let that go rather than just really wound up about it. And it's a really good balance to have as well. And it's not, as you said, it's not even just about people finding a partner. Some people have also, like other coaches, have other coaches to vent to as well. And then that there's an outlet there. And I think trying to run it solo is quite difficult to probably get that balance of understanding all aspects, especially in a completely new country as well, a new culture as well. There's probably bits that your wife has picked up that she understands more than you do in certain situations. Do you find that as well, because they're able to sort of view it from a different point?
Yeah,
my wife especially can, that's for sure.
I think that's just the dynamic between men and women too. By the way, like females and males pick up very different aspects. I miss stuff like all the time, which she's like, "Do you not see what just happened there? No idea what happened." No, I missed that social cue completely. The interesting though, like just on that Japanese thing, that and going back to that podcast which we've done, is the connection you have with coaches there is really strong, because you're all in the same boat. Everyone's got families. Like myself and Franz Ludiker, myself and Johan Ackerman, Steve Hansen, we're all there together. And you become really good mates because there's not too many other social circles you work in. So me and Franz coached different teams. He coached Kubota, and I was coaching the Sunwolves, and we lived in the same village, and our families became really tight just because there was someone else that spoke English, and then it was just lovely. And you have those sort of connections, and you just connect with other sort of coaches and foreigners particularly deeper, because you just don't get many other choices, and just they're all the good sorts too. So it was great.
Nah, fair play. So obviously, the podcast you started, is it January roughly that you started it, more or less?
Yeah, January or February. Yeah, January, I think. Yeah, January.
Going great guns, mate. Obviously, you had some amazing guests on so far. Obviously, you've delved into the little black book. For those that haven't sort of reached into the backstory of the podcast, what was your reason for starting it? Did you think you needed to get that message out? Because there's a lot of rugby podcasts out there at the minute as well, but coaching culture sort of stands out in its own little bubble because it gives different stories of how those coaches come to where they are. Like, did you think, actually, I need to tell my story through this, or did you think, I'm already busy, I just want to be a bit busier? Is that kind of?
Yeah, well, you certainly noticed that in a busy week when you've got to get the podcast edited up. It certainly takes it. But no, the reason is because I've always loved this stuff, and I feel like this is where I've gone really well with my own coaching. Like, I quite quickly, I know I've got a little niche around the breakdown and some defensive stuff, which I'm very good at technically. But where I really came of age, and the Japan experience was big too. And I had a couple of years in Canada too, and I just found the people really enjoyed my coaching, and it wasn't necessarily the feedback I always got was we loved all your technical stuff, but just the way you made us feel, and you got this team pumping by just being open, being creative, being optimistic and positive, and connecting with people. And I just saw the ability to take teams from just sort of going through the motions to actually getting excited to play with nothing like technical done. Yes, there's technical stuff which helps, but just by connecting and making people feel belonging to a team and part of it and appreciated by the coach, and that someone cares for them, and all these soft skill type things, I saw it firsthand with international sides and the difference it made, and like top draw professional teams, the impact and the actual performance on field changing. And it sort of became where I really rate myself and go really well on this front. And I just thought, it's a skill set of mine. The coaches that I all coach us know this is me, and so like because I've been around the world with this gig, let's start making this more accessible. And I've had this mission, Carl, that I love America. So this is the person I am trying to get to is the club coach in Texas that's got no one else to turn to. He can watch all the technical drills on YouTube, but he doesn't know how to run a
Yeah.
rugby team. He doesn't know how to bring people together. He doesn't know how to make the sport fun because he just hasn't got the people to lean on. And I thought, why not bring the world to him? That because like you can't go to the Texas Rugby Union is is a good one, but it doesn't have the resource. It's such a massive area. Like for that coach in Texas to get insight to how to actually create a team, to create the culture of rugby, to reinforce the values of the sport, they got no idea. Like and how would you? Like you'd have to fly to another country and do 2 weeks with the Crusaders or on one of those high performance courses. So I just took it on as a challenge. Like let's bring it to the place in the world that can't do it and have a good crack at it. And on the side, I wanted to learn those skills myself. I wanted to, see if I could make something, like make a product of, editing skills and a little bit of marketing. There's so much to it, and it ticked all my creative, like much like yourself, probably, mate. It's a creative outlet, and just to work it and see what you can do and who you can ask and see what comes of it. And I walk away from every episode with pages of notes from these guys, and privileged to start off with, as you said, like I started off with Eddie Jones and then Steve Hansen as my opening two. And, it just starts off on the right foot when you got a couple of the biggest names in world rugby just saying, yeah, man, well, I'd love to. And they were so good with it. And everyone since has just been the same, mate. It's a joy.
It's the same as when I started the pod to reach into grassroots and especially like the Rugby Europe stuff where I feel isn't covered enough, and there's a lot of stories that people don't know, and then you're able to reach out to DORs and coaches and stuff, all of these ones that are able to just want to talk rugby. And I think that's the greatest bit of our sport, is everyone wants to talk about it. We've just now got to find a way of how can we commercialize it and take it more to the masses so that everyone else can see how great our sport is. And I think that's potentially where we're at a bit of a crossroads of rugby. I do a lot of stuff alongside All Things Rugby, and they're trying to do the rugby app and try to change the ways that rugby's done. What would be your one way to change rugby at the minute that could bring it into the mainstream, like bigger mainstream, and obviously make it more accessible to everyone?
I often think back to ancient Rome when they had the Colosseum and the gladiators, and that filled like 100,000 people, and it was packed. And eventually that became redundant and extinct, and gladiators were no longer a thing. And I assume at some point people went, oh, you know what, people are getting hurt in here. Don't know if it's worth doing. And then it just died. And for a little bit of me, I know that's a morbid analogy to relate to rugby, but there's components of that which maybe ring true too. It is a violent sport. It's a contact sport. People get hurt and worse than hurt. And there's that, it feels at the moment like there's that risk of it going that way, like the gladiators did, where it gets so watered down that, imagine if the gladiators said, oh, let's just try do no swords for a little while and see what that happens. You imagine the crowd. Yeah. Nah. But where I think it can always stay relevant, and it can be, and where good rugby people can drive it is the values of this thing. Like the values of rugby, I think, is consumpts any other sport, and part of the reason why it consumpts other sports is the contact, hurt, injury aspect, where it does hurt physically, and when you go through physical hurts, you can actually grow your emotional resilience to those physical hurts, so that a physical hurt doesn't then become an emotional hurt. And where else in life do you get that in a team setting? Like there's other combat sports like MMA, boxing, but they're individual. But this is a sport that has great values associated. Like that is the guiding light of rugby, is it's a brutal game played by people that honor the values and values of sportsmanship, respect, treating each other well. Like we talked earlier about smashing each other up in fights, and then a second later you shake hands and you're back into it, and that kind of thing. Like that's almost like it's beautiful in a way. Like you can just let things go. Everyone understands the dynamic and the physical nature and the hurt, and people are able to push through and get learnings which relates to other aspects of life. And I deal with a lot of kids, or have done in the past, that come from real troubled upbringings, like gangs, things like that. And a sport like rugby is amazing. It channels all that stuff which is going on in their life and puts constraints and values around the behavior and says, there you go do that, but do it in this constraints and learn how to, grow resilience, how to grow your redhead, bluehead, so you're not just always flicking to that. And it can do that. And if you didn't have it, that'd be done out in the street to random public people, for sure. I know guys that I've coached that if they weren't playing rugby, they'd be in jail for bashing someone on a street on a Saturday night. 100%. They'd admit that themselves. I've got players that have said that to me. If it wasn't for rugby, I'd be in jail. And for me, that's what we can... we've got to push that side of it. We've got to push the value of being hurt rather than say we shouldn't be getting hurt. We need to push the fact that getting hurt is a good thing because it teaches you how to deal with it. And I think it should be in our kids. I'm sort of gone into a director of rugby role at a school here, and there's a lot of cotton wooling. And the danger of cotton wooling is it kills the beauty of the sport. Like, I want my boy to get knocked when he's playing. Like, he went into the physio today and had a grade 1 medial ligament strain. And he came to me and said, but I can still play, eh? And I was like, mate, if it doesn't hurt, you can play. And he goes, it hurts a bit. And I go, can you push through it? And he goes, yeah, I reckon I can. I go, well, give it a crack, mate, and see how you go. Yeah. But he's learning.
Load of tape on it, it'd be fine. Tape solves everything.
He's learning how to push through stuff and physical things. Yeah. And he's training his brain mentally and emotionally how to get through that. And so when he experiences hurts in life, either mental, emotional, physical, he's had that experience. He goes, actually, I've pushed through something worse than this before when I, broke my leg. I had to work hard, get back, do all this thing. And it's a humbling experience. And the whole sport of rugby, conceptually, is about getting knocked back down and learning, get up again and go again, do exact same. And that is resilience personified. And I think that's an aspect in life and humanity where we've got to keep pushing it, because the more automated things get, the more you're taking away resilience in people. And I think rugby is the vehicle to do that. So if I was to change anything, I wouldn't change it. I'd just double down on the positive nature.
Go full send. Full send on what it is.
Yeah, let's push it. Let's, like, governing bodies, head of rugbies, unions, councils, double down on the values of it. Like, yes, it's aggressive. Yes, you get hurt. Yes, injuries will be there. But that's not a bad thing. Let's not remove it. It's not Teflon rugby, because the value you get is immense.
I think probably the safest way to describe rugby is controlled violence. It is the perfect vessel for teaching self-control, teaching how to still stand up for yourself in life. Like, obviously we just had the Champions Cup final on Saturday, and obviously Henry Pollock, 20 years old, was literally playing on the edge all the way through the game, winding Bordeaux up to try and make sure that Saints won. Yeah. It didn't work out for Saints. Obviously, the Bordeaux players give him a shove, etc. But there was automatically like, oh, why are you starting on a 20-year-old? If he's willing to stand up for himself, you got to expect it back in life. You can't just jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, he started it, blah, blah, blah. Now they're starting back on him. You can't. We can't portray rugby as the way that is and the aggressive side and lads are up for it. But then as soon as somebody gives it back to somebody that's been doing it all game, they're running around saying, oh, he's 20-year-old, you can't start picking on a 20-year-old. Like, hold on, mate. Like, he's been trying to have a scrap all game, trying to literally play on the edge, which is what we want in rugby, and we want him to do what he wants to do. And that's probably the greatest aspect of our game, is you can literally fine line balance that sort of aggression and being a nose and being a wind-up. I haven't
heard that word in a long time. Love it.
Yeah. But like you can be fine line for being a nose in rugby to then where it then tilts over the edge. And I don't know why the media had to go start running around and saying, oh, why are we starting on a 20-year-old? Like, if he's old enough to play and good enough to play, it doesn't matter how old he is. Like, there's enough 18-year-olds out there that are probably of a standard, but they're also willing to have a scrap. They're willing to stand and fight for their own values. But we're namby-pambying around on some of that sort of media, I think.
Yeah, potentially. The other aspect which I'll add to that is for a lot of people, it's important to have this out. Like this is like people love it. The people that are out there at a professional level, certainly, they love it. It's them. And if you're like my dad's not a rugby guy, right? For example, and he used to say to me when I was just making it professionally, like when I come back with like bloody heads, like stitches down my face and black eyes, and he couldn't understand it. He was like, "Son, why are you doing this? What's the appeal?" And I was like, "I don't know, Dad. I just love it." And he just couldn't get it. Yeah. Like he was always like, yeah, it seems crazy to me. Like, why you do this to yourself? Like, why would you run into these fellas? Like, why would you put your head down there when they can kick it? And for the bulk of people in the world who don't play rugby, that's the sentiment. Like, this is stupid. Like, and get angry. Yeah. But for those people that play it, this you know that the desire, there's something inherent in you which just goes, this is awesome. Like the pain doesn't hurt. Like I love this stuff. And if you're not that way, you don't get it. Like you don't get the appeal of getting knocked over. Like why would you do that? But for those that are in it, it's like, please don't take this away. Please don't like do stuff against this. Like this is the one place in life where that personality type or the people that love that get to do it. So it should be those people that make the changes and be critiquing stuff because they know the deal, like the rugby people. Yeah. Like it feels like sometimes people that don't know rugby, that don't play it, judge it with a civilian mindset, if that's the right word. Oh, it's aggressive. Oh, it's violent. Oh, it's combative. We should get rid of it. It's like war. Well, yes, but you don't know the intrinsic motivations and the burn that people have about this side of life.
I think we also don't. We didn't deal with the head case situation very well. A lot of the RFU was a case of they just agreed because they didn't want to sort of try and defend it. I don't know. I think it could have been because a lot of kids don't want to play the game, or parents don't want the kids to play the game now because all they hear is about people with serious bad head injuries and stuff. And we've changed the game to accommodate what was injuries at the top 1% because of the amount of training sessions and stuff like that. The rest of the game's been changed to dilute that game, to focus on the 1% of injuries at the top level, but not change the top level because not all of the tackles are the same as what you could. We didn't, as a rugby piece, I don't think we dealt with it very well and probably played into a lot of people's agenda of it is that, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you running head first into that 20-odd stone man and stuff? I don't think we dealt with it very well as a sport.
Yeah, mate, I agree. And I've got some pretty strong opinions, which I probably shouldn't air on. But like having been through serious concussion myself, like I got knocked out and it took me ages, right? So I was through it. They actually asked me if I wanted to be on that suit, for example. Like, do you want to come join this? Yeah. And my answer was no, because I knew what I was walking into the moment I started playing rugby. I knew small guy playing a big guy's game. I knew. Everybody knows that their head's going to get knocked. Like I knew that, and and like. No one probably has got the head knocks that like I'm one of that 1% that got some serious ones which had some long-term damage. But I worked really hard to come right from that. It took me ages. But like don't drink or didn't drink. Took really good foods, supplements, exercise. I did all these awesome things like synergistic foods which worked, food logs which affected me, and really worked hard on that. Yeah, man.
Really?
I'll tell you, well, anyone listening that wants to know, if you get a concussion, this is what my wife said to me, who done a whole protocol. Like, she's a geek. She's a medical researcher by trade. So when I was struggling, she was like, right. She said this to me: your brain's not healing the way it should. So you're doing something that's keeping your brain in that state. So we need to work out what it is that you're doing that's keeping your brain from repairing properly. And I love that because it took away the victimhood of it. Like, took away the fact that, oh, I've got a head knock, I can't do anything, I'm just going to sit here and do whatever. And it made me, so the first thing we did, and for weeks, I would take hardcore food diaries. And then when I got my headaches and my brain fog and all that stuff, she would go back and go through everything I'd eaten. And she goes, hey, here's a pattern that's emerging. Every time you eat almonds, you're getting that headache you complain about 6 hours later. And she's like, isn't that fascinating? So
Wow.
let's take that out of your diet, because for whatever reason, for you individually, that's stirring your brain up, or you're getting a reaction there.
Yeah.
So let's edit that out for a while. And likewise, there's heaps of other things which can, like pattern wise, it was I was doing stuff to keep me in that state or to not maximize my recovery. And I think it's really important that you're really active. Like if you were to get a cork thigh, you would be able to ice it, massage it, all that stuff to reduce the swelling and whatnot. But you can't do that with the brain.
Yeah.
But the food and things you put in your body, your stimulants, are keeping that, stirring. And so, mate, I think it's done a little bit of damage to the game, that side of things. It's created this kind of the awareness is good. Don't get me wrong, the awareness is good, and it's good that it's changed, that it is a serious thing, because back in my day, it was like, are you all right? Keep going. And I did. And I got knocked out multiple times in games, which is horrendous. So that's gone now. There's definitely that awareness is there. But it's important, like now any knock, if like at schoolboy level, for example, if you think you got a knock, you say you got a concussion, you do the mandatory stand down. And I would say, I've seen 50 concussions, I'd say one is actually what I go, that would be a genuine concussion. The rest are all just, I think something's wrong, and it's becoming that. And I don't want to take anything away from people that, well, I had serious concussion issues, so I know the feeling. You have to be hit pretty hard and have some pretty stuff go on with that. But there's a whole backstory to that stuff, mate. I think the litigation side of things, and people, dare I say it, like, wanting to do well over that potential. I don't know, mate. I shouldn't probably say anymore. I'll get a bit fired up about it, Carl. And
no, I agree. I think that what's been put in place is correct to a certain extent. But I think there's also, as you said, there's probably an element of people, some players that are playing the game that don't want to play the game. It's an easy opt out on some players. Like I think I've got a head. Like they're gassed. They can't fucking run anymore. Like sometimes I thought, fuck me, I feel like I need a head injury, like a head knock here, just so that I can get 10 minutes nap or something. Like, but there's an element of, are you putting that's the first thing anyone runs on. Any physio runs onto a game now. Is it a head injury? Is it this? Is it that? And then they've obviously the safeguards in place now to make sure that we go through every protocol, which is brilliant. And obviously
it is brilliant, Carl. Some of those protocols are brilliant, and they're very good to have in. And even some of the mandatory stuff I think is excellent too, but without question. Yeah,
exactly. And obviously the players that have got serious issues since, there's obviously they've got to make sure that they're protected. But it's the same as NFL as well. The NFL kind of, they dealt with it in a completely different manner, didn't they? They just sort of tried to ignore it and like say it never happened. And the game's kind of gone the other end of the scale. And if we could find that mid balance to still promote the values of the game and make sure that everyone's safe while not diluting the game, I think that's exactly where we can probably push the game forward.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I reckon it. Yeah. I think you're spot on. Keep the values, and with you, mate, for sure.
Right, so we've obviously gone through most of where you've been, what you've done. With the podcast as well, what's the biggest takeaway you've had from, obviously, as you said, you've had Eddie Jones on, Steve Hansen, you had John Mitchell on the other week, Sam Vesti's on the most recent episode that just before we've recorded this. From talking to all of those coaches, what is the one takeaway that you could probably join together and give advice to a young coach? Well, I had Simon Middleton on, and he just said, throw yourself into everything, every opportunity you can as a coach, go and do it, because then you learn different aspects. Is that a similar sort of tune that Eddie and Steve and sort of John Mitchell and that, they're all sort of singing, or have they got a different
I love
mindset?
That phrase by Simon. I reckon that's a bang on. Like, that's, as a young coach, you throw yourself in the deep end and go for it, and you can't get it wrong if you have a great outlook like that. I think with the nature of the podcast we're doing, the culture one, what's been really highlighted back to me, I've always known through my own experience and successes that the importance of the cultural aspect, the lighter skills, the human skills, the softer skills, I've always known their importance. And what this podcast has magnified for me is that all these top coaches put that side of the game more important than the technical and tactical. And that's a lot of them. It's come later in life. Like Steve Hansen's a good one, where he said to me once that when he left Wales, what did you change when you went to All Blacks? And he said, my leadership and my ability to connect with people, rather than any sort of technical and tactical stuff. And he said that's been my biggest learning. And I think that's the driving message, is that this is such a sport where you can keep it so simple and you can do so well in such a simple game if you get the buy-in, if you make people love it, if you make them want to be there. You are simple, and you only have to look at South Africa, the way they play. Like, they win World Cups with the simplest game plan you'll ever see, but their players are so connected, so into it, so bought in through Rassie's brilliant connecting. The way he connects that team, the way he drives it, the way he fosters belief and all that stuff, that's the art of what he's doing. Because I know for a fact, like, they're not doing anything that rock, like, that's so simple. We had Peter Steph Toy in our team last year, and I was just trying to ask him what sort of stuff's he doing. He's like, oh no, mate, what's your defense? And I think, mate, we just go hard, just fly up. I just go hard. Yeah, but what are you doing? He goes, oh, mate, just stand on the outside and go for it, like, there's nothing to it. But the belief in that they sold the dream and all that side of things is huge. And I think as coaches, especially young coaches, you think you have to know all this technical and tactical stuff. And to a degree you do. Like, you have to know, a level. And if you want to go to the next level, you probably have to know that level up. But it's a lot lower than you think. And if you can connect people really well, and if you can ask good questions and get through to people and motivate people and do that side of the game really well, you can know nothing about the game, I reckon. And I'd love to do that. I'd love to go into, now with the skill sets I've got, I'd love to go into sports I've never played or don't have much idea about, like hockey or something, and see if I could coach a team to a good level just by, getting the best out of people. Like, getting them to come up with ideas and driving that. So I reckon I could do it now with what I've learned over the last 15 years. And I reckon that's the piece. I think in previous times, that sort of stuff hasn't been able to equate to success. But just what Sam Vesti said the other day about that, I had the Crusaders Academy guy on the other day, who actually, Paul Galland, and he said the Crusaders thing, the first thing they look at is character, which has nothing to do with the actual game, right? Like, they're looking at those guys who have the ability to be good people, to, think and all that stuff before they even, that's their biggest character thing they're looking for before they even start looking at how good they can kick a ball or pass a ball or anything like that. And, mate, that's it. So I would say for young coaches, like, yes, get onto your technical skills. It's the game. It's part of it. But then once you get to a certain level, really dive into the other aspect too. Get to know people. How do you get the best out of people? How do you make people love what they're doing? How do you drive that motivation? Those sort of things are so creative. And if you're that way inclined, it's such a joy.
I think it's a bit similar to the business analogy as well. Like, you try to be the dumbest person in the room, so you're able to bring the right people in to sort of, so you don't have to know anything. Like, as you said, you could potentially go into another sport by knowing the right people that are better than you to make sure that vessel runs easier. And as you said, trying to balance that, especially trying to, like, coaching between cultures as well, that's the bit, to make sure that you know the right people in the right places that will make your life easier as a coach, as well as the people you're trying to coach.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. That's spot on.
Ben, I think this could go on for hours, mate, but I know I've already probably taken up far too much of your time by getting on the wrong time zone in my own.
My little guy's he's sitting up watching episodes of Family Guy, which he probably shouldn't do, thinking it's Christmas because Dad's slackened off on storytelling tonight.
Oh, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, Ben, having you on. So for anyone that doesn't know where to find your podcast, where is it? Who's coming up? Are you able to sort of give us any highlights of any future guests? Because I don't know how big this black book is, but Christ, you are getting some guests on there, mate.
It's going good, mate. We've got a few goodies coming up. It's called Coaching Culture with Ben Herring. It's on all Apple, Spotify, all podcast platforms. doing a lot on LinkedIn. That's the platform which I like to use, because I get to add my own comments to some of the podcasts and draw up things that I've done, which has been sensational. Mate, we've got some good ones coming up. We're branching out and doing a couple of different people. We've got some of the World Rugby directors of rugby coming on. We've got some analysis guys, and we've got some international coaches already in the bank, mate. One of them may or may not be coaching the Leicester Tigers future coming up soon.
Nice.
But loving it, mate. Yeah, it's fun. Some good people, and they're very, as you would know, people that come on podcasts are generally super open about sharing their stuff.
100%. Mate, it's been a pleasure just to have you on and just chat rugby. And obviously, we've gone over a lot of stuff that might have dug up some memories, or memories that you can't remember now because of the previous injuries. And I think there's definitely more in the tank. And for that, everyone that hasn't sort of got enough of this, go listen to Ben's pod, because it's quality out there, mate. And can't wait to see the future guests, mate.
You're a legend, Carl. Thanks for having me, mate. What a privilege.
No, thank you, Ben. Really appreciate it. Thanks. For everyone that wants to make sure they keep hold of everything that Rugby TTL are doing, obviously we're on Insta, everywhere else. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, keep abreast on everything on YouTube. There's plenty more guests coming up. Probably not as good as Ben's, but we'll have a go anyway. So thank you and goodbye.